Sherman Firefly time. I finally got around to building it. Welcome everyone to a new video. Today's build showcase is another variant of my original M4 Sherman design in Lego. I have built the British Firefly Sherman. First, I think I'll start off with just a little tiny bit of history, just in case anyone hasn't seen this version, though the Firefly tank is fairly famous. I was learning a little bit about it, so I'm kind of new to this, but I figure I'll share just a tiny little bit of what I've learned, just sort of for the context of what this is and what makes it different than the original model that I had built, which was the other Sherman that I made out of Lego. And then I'll get into sort of showcasing how I made it and what the plans for the actual builds on this mean for the channel. So, what is a Sherman Firefly? Sherman Firefly is an upgunned Sherman. The M4 Sherman was an American tank that was made in World War II. The original design of the tank was upgunned a little bit later in the war as a result of the Germans building heavier and heavier tanks as the war progressed. And through the Lend-Lease program, the Sherman tanks were given to the British Empire, and they used them to great effect, but still did not have a very capable platform for using an anti-tank gun. So what the plan was to take an M4 Sherman, which was a fairly generic medium tank of the time, and put a quick-firing 17-pounder anti-tank gun into this tiny little turret here. The process was a little bit strange, and the tank became sort of a stopgap Frankenstein of a tank, if you will, to be able to sort of compensate for underpowered tanks on the battlefield. But as a result of some British ingenuity, it became a very popular tank that operated very well, as far as what I read, on the field, even though it was a little bit non-standard. So the primary changes to the Sherman was the both in my build and in real life was the change of the turret. This turret I redesigned a little bit to look more like the Firefly turret and less like the turret that I had before, which was the cast M4 75, which is what I had before. It's not too much different. They added an extra hatch on here, which mine is a decorative one. I didn't make a working one because that would have been too hard. And then there is a bustle box on the back, which was for the radio set, because the recoil of the 17-pounder gun was fairly large and the turret was too small. Instead of redesigning a turret, what they did is they moved the radio set out the back of the turret and put it in an armored box. So it has this very famous sort of tail piece on the end of it. And then naturally the mantlet, I changed my mantlet a little bit. The mantlet was fairly similar. And then naturally the barrel of the gun was a lot longer. Aside from that, there were only a few changes to the actual tank when I was building this. I could have gone down a different route and made it even more different, but I didn't end up doing that because I thought it was going to be too much work. Most of the Fireflies, as far as I could tell, were M4A4s, I think, in which they had elongated bodies. I did not change the size of my tank body because there were a couple different variations of the Firefly modification. And I didn't want to have to redesign this whole body of the tank because it was really tricky to do. The whole machine gun and the assistant driver that used to drive here, the crew was reduced and the whole machine gun was reduced as a result of ammo storage because the rounds for the 17-pounder gun were a lot larger. But aside from that, it was fairly similar. Mine is the welded variant body because that was the one that I had built and it was fairly easy, though there were some M4A1s that were modified into Fireflies. But then I just made it sort of a modified hull with a few different cargo bits, just as is. This is my my M4 Sherman Firefly, naturally. It was a really fun thing to build. It was something I wanted to build for quite a while. I had a few subscribers recommend, or a few viewers recommend that they would like to see a Firefly, which I thought was really cool. That was something I was planning to do anyway, but I thought it was neat that people were asking about wanting to see one, because that was a fun thing to sort of interact with people and hear from them. So if you were out there and you asked for an M4 Sherman Firefly video, here it is. This video is for you. The whole process was not too tremendous to actually convert my Sherman build, which the tutorials are indeed on my channel, if anyone has any interest in building my original Sherman. But the conversion from that kit to this one that I built here was actually not too tremendously bad. I was thinking for as far as my tutorials go, what I might do is show how to build my Firefly turret along with the barrel and everything like that. It's really similar to the other one, but it might be nice to do that. But show just the turret build and not redo the body, because the body is very, very similar. I made small modifications to my Sherman body anyway, just recently. And as a result of that, it's really not too much different. I moved a couple pieces around. I added some extra sort of up armoring on the front here where the driver would be. I added some other little components in the back, along with some extra features that are on it, and like a welded box and some little smoke thing and all the stuff. But it's really not that much different, and I didn't decide or plan to make any of those big changes or try to elongate the hull or anything, because that would have kind of been a mess for me. And I think with all that being said, I think it looks fairly nice. I could definitely redo it. This is my first Firefly design. I've never built one before, but there were a few things about it that just bugged me just a little bit, which was something like this. So the hatch on the Firefly famously is like a split hatch with two different opening pieces. I had such a nice design, I felt like, with this hatch, this single hatch that I had on top of this turret anyway, that I really didn't want to make the split hatch. If I'm being perfectly honest, I was a little bit lazy and said, hey, I don't really want to do that because I think it would ruin my Sherman design. If I ever end up changing that, I most certainly will make a video on it and make a point of showing how I did that. But for now, I'm keeping it like this, even though the Sherman Firefly had sort of a split hatch scenario there. But aside from that, it's fairly okay. So I missed elongating the hole and changing the hatch. But aside from that, I did kind of a classic original design on my Sherman body, which was really nice, and I think it looks pretty good for the scale. It was really fun to sculpt this gun. It was a new thing. I did the counter shading camouflage, and I just did it in gray because I didn't have the right pieces to do it in white, and it's tricky to do at this a little bit tinier scale. I'm not really sure exactly what the scale is that I use. It's a little bit smaller than what people might expect, and I don't have custom pieces or anything for like something like the Firefly barrel, so I ended up just doing it with the best that I could with the pieces that I have, which is usually what I end up doing anyway, because there's not any better options. Aside from all of that, the M4 Sherman is really not that much different, as I mentioned. It was primarily the turret, but other features that I've had in this tank before are all fairly similar. The inside is about the same. I added a few small modifications to like the engine and some little storage bits in there, but other than that, it really wasn't that much different. Those were changes that I made to my Sherman anyway. And if anyone ever uses my tutorial to build my M4 Sherman, I figured those things would come naturally anyway based off of part selection, which I really appreciate, because I wouldn't want to make a Sherman that you needed one specific kinds of pieces or part selection or something and you wouldn't be able to build it without, because I don't think that would be any fun. This is the first time I added a long barrel on my Sherman. I really wanted to build the 76W turret, which is more of a kind of like a flatter topped kind of a wider turret. I haven't gotten around to doing it because it was going to be so much work to have to redesign like the actual whole turret. But I probably will try that later. But it was fun to build the Firefly because the turret is ultimately the same. It's very similar, and all it was an upgunning thing with the actual gun. So it was fun. I mostly just designed the tank barrel, which took a little while, and the bustle box, and there were a few other tweaks that I made. But really outside of that, it wasn't too much more complicated. And I think it's a really cool looking model. The Firefly is a very iconic tank from the Second World War. It was an incredibly effective anti-tank gun that famously could punch out Tiger 1s in their frontal armor, which was usually the thickest. And as far as having a really good anti-tank platform, it was a really effective weapon used. It was one of the most effective guns used on tanks and armored vehicles in the Second World War by the British Army. It's a really cool thing to learn about. I spent some time doing some reading and stuff, and I really enjoyed learning about this and building this. And and all that process for me kind of comes full circle for me to be able to share it and show off my builds, which I'm really excited about. And I always wanted to build a Firefly, and I think it looks pretty good. If I'm being perfectly honest, I think my favorite part is the fact that I use this little rounded bit for the end muzzle brake, because it has sort of a ball-ended muzzle brake, and I couldn't find a better piece for it. But I think it looks pretty cool. So this is my M4 Sherman Firefly. If you liked it, you know what to do. If not, it doesn't matter to me. I'd like to make these things anyway and showcase them, and it's always a delight of mine to share. Thanks again for anyone who recommended this project. I had a few people from different sources recommend that they wanted to see a firefly, and I thought that was a cool thing, and it was something I was planning to build anyway, but I appreciate the encouragement as well. So it's mostly here just to get showcase of it, kind of just some footage, because it's like, obviously I've already built this Sherman before. And I kind of just want to show off my variants as opposed to just redesigning it every single time. And as far as I said, like before, I think I'll do a tutorial on the turret, but I won't do one on the body because the body is primarily the same. Aside from that, this is it. This is the end of the video. Thanks for watching and checking it out. I am truly honored by your presence here to come and watch my funny little projects.